The chamber stretched beyond what human eyes could fully comprehend. Crystalline walls rose 15 kilometers high, disappearing into artificial clouds that swirled with bioluminescent patterns. 7,000 seats arranged in concentric circles held representatives from species that had ruled the stars for millennia. Some floated on anti-gravity platforms. Others sat in containment fields filled with methane or ammonia. A few existed as pure energy, their consciousness contained in quantum matrices that hummed with alien thought. Commander David Torres stood alone at the center of it all. He wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. No weapons, no technology beyond a basic translator implant. Above him, the 9 arbiters hovered on platforms that defied gravity, their bodies wrapped in robes that shifted colors with their moods. The eldest among them, High Arbiter Velmuth, possessed 7 manipulator limbs and skin that glowed with patterns Torres couldn't decipher. When the Arbiter spoke, his voice echoed through translation systems built into the chamber itself. Human, you stand before the Galactic Council, charged with an act so reckless that many among us question whether your species deserves membership in this assembly. Do you understand the gravity of your situation? Torres said nothing. His dark eyes swept the chamber, measuring distances, counting exits, calculating odds. He had prepared for this moment for 3 years, but preparation and reality were vastly different things. 3 standard cycles ago, Velmuth continued, you transmitted a formal declaration of war against the Korvath Dominion, a civilization that controls 200 star systems, a military force that has never known defeat in 5 centuries of continuous conflict. You represent a species that joined this council barely 3 years past, commanding a fleet of exactly 47 ships, controlling a mere 28 colonized worlds. Yet you declared war. The chamber erupted in alien voices, clicking, whistling, humming, roaring. The translation system struggled to keep pace. Torres caught fragments of outrage, confusion, and what might have been dark amusement from the more predatory species. A delegate from the lower gallery stood abruptly. His scales flashed crimson with barely controlled rage. Torres recognized the species if not the individual. Korvath, warlike, honor-bound, and currently pointing one clawed appendage directly at him. This human insults the Dominion. He attacks us without provocation, without cause, without the strength to back his threats. I demand immediate sanctions against Earth. Torres turned slowly to face the Korvath delegate. He did not speak. He simply met the alien's 4-eyed glare with perfect calm. And something in that calm made the Korvath's scales ripple with uncertainty. High Arbiter Velmuth raised 3 of his 7 limbs in a gesture that commanded silence. Commander Torres, before this council passes judgment, you will explain yourself. Why has Earth involved itself in the Korvath-Draven conflict? What possible justification can you offer for such unprecedented aggression? Torres stepped forward. His boots rang against the crystalline floor, the sound carrying through the vast chamber with unnatural clarity. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but somehow reached every corner of that impossible space. How long has the war been going on? The question caught everyone off guard. Velmuth's bioluminescence flickered with confusion. Excuse me? The Korvath-Draven War. How many years has it lasted? 517 standard years, Velmuth said slowly. What relevance does this have? And how many have died in those 517 years? Approximately 18 billion sentient beings across both civilizations. Torres let that number hang in the air. 18 billion. An entire civilization's worth of deaths. Generations born into war, living through war, dying in war, never knowing peace. And in those 517 years, how many peace negotiations has the Council mediated? Velmuth's colors shifted toward defensive orange. That information is not relevant to your transgression. 43, Torres said flatly. I looked it up. 43 separate peace initiatives. Every single one failed. The war continues. The deaths continue? And the Council continues to mediate the same conflict with the same methods, expecting different results. He turned to address the full assembly. Do you know what humans call that? Insanity. Gasps and outraged sounds filled the chamber. Several delegates rose from their seats. Torres ignored them, his attention fixed on Velmuth. For 3 years, Earth has observed this council. We've studied your methods, your politics, your endless discussions, and careful diplomacy. And we've noticed something interesting. You're very good at managing conflicts. You're terrible at ending them. How dare you? Another delegate shouted. Torres didn't bother to identify the species. The Council has maintained peace across 12,000 worlds for millennia. You've maintained a system, Torres corrected. A system where conflicts like the Korvath Draven war grind on indefinitely because actually resolving them would upset too many political arrangements. The military contractors supplying both sides. The politicians who've built careers on the conflict. The noble houses whose power depends on wartime emergency provisions. He pulled a data crystal from his pocket, holding it up for the chamber's sensors to scan. I have detailed financial records showing exactly who profits from this war continuing. Would the Council like to see them? Velmuth's bioluminescence went completely dark for 3 full seconds. When the glow returned, it was a deep, dangerous red. You accuse Council members of corruption? I accuse this institution of being so paralyzed by its own bureaucracy that 18 billion beings died while you debated proper procedures. I accuse you of prioritizing stability over justice, process over results, and political convenience over actual peace. Torres's voice hardened. And I'm here to tell you that Earth is done watching. The silence that followed was absolute. 7,000 delegates stared at the solitary human who had just insulted the most powerful governing body in the known galaxy. Then Torres smiled. It was not a friendly expression. 72 hours ago, I declared war on the Korvath Dominion. 60 hours ago, I deployed a weapon that will reach the Korvath home system in approximately 14 hours. When it arrives, it will cause a carefully calibrated solar flare that will disable every piece of advanced technology within 5 light minutes of their sun for exactly 6 days. Their military command structure will be paralyzed. Their defense grid will go dark. Their communication networks will fail. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted, roared, whistled their outrage. Security forces moved toward Torres with weapons drawn. But High Arbiter Velmuth raised all 7 limbs, and somehow that gesture froze everyone in place. You deployed a weapon of mass destruction against a Council member world? I deployed a precision instrument against a military target, calibrated to avoid any civilian casualties. Life support systems will remain functional. Emergency protocols will activate. No one will die. Torres met Velmuth's alien gaze without flinching. But for 6 days, the most powerful military force in this sector will be completely vulnerable. And during those 6 days, Earth's fleet will position itself between the Korvath and Draven forces, offering both sides a simple choice, which is, accept immediate peace negotiations under human mediation, guaranteed by our military presence, or face the fact that Earth has demonstrated the capability to cripple any civilization's home defense network. We've proven we can do the impossible, and we've proven we can do it without killing anyone. That makes us either the greatest threat this council has ever faced, or the solution to a problem you've been unable to solve for 5 centuries. Torres turned slowly, making eye contact with delegates throughout the chamber. So here's my question for all of you. Are you going to punish me for breaking your rules? Or are you going to thank me when the Korvath Draven war ends in the next 72 hours? No one spoke. The weight of what Torres had done, the audacity of his gambit, the sheer impossibility of it all pressed down on the chamber like a physical force. Finally, Velmuth spoke, his voice carefully controlled. If you are lying, if this weapon does not exist or fails to perform as you claim, Earth will face sanctions that will isolate your species for millennia. If you are telling the truth, you have violated every principle of council law and demonstrated a recklessness that terrifies us all. He paused. Guards, escort Commander Torres to detention. This tribunal will reconvene when we have verified his claims. As security forces surrounded him, Torres caught sight of a figure in the upper gallery. The being wore robes that marked it as a council observer, one of the mysterious entities tasked with witnessing and recording significant historical events. The observer's strange eyes met his, and the being nodded once. A gesture of recognition. History was being made. The galaxy was changing, and Commander David Torres had just ensured that Earth would never be ignored again. The guards led him away through corridors that seemed to shift and flow like liquid architecture. Torres walked calmly, his mind already racing through the next phase of his plan. In 14 hours, his weapon would prove itself. In 72 hours, the war would end. If everything went according to plan, if his calculations were correct, if he hadn't just doomed his entire species with the most ambitious gamble in human history, the detention cell defied human expectations of imprisonment. Instead of bars or force fields, Torres found himself in what resembled a luxury apartment carved from translucent crystal. Through the walls, he could see the Council's capital world stretching below, alien cities glowing with technologies Earth was still decades from understanding. In orbit above, 12 human warships hung like predators among sheep. Their presence a statement that had every major power scrambling to recalculate the political mathematics of the galaxy. Torres stood at the viewport, watching the countdown on his internal display. 11 hours until the Nova Cascade weapon reached the Corvath sun. 11 hours until he proved Earth could deliver on impossible promises or revealed himself as the greatest fraud in galactic history. The door chimed with a sound like distant bells. Torres turned to see Admiral Kellen Rourke entering, followed by 2 council guards who looked distinctly uncomfortable escorting such obvious authority. Rourke was Earth's chief of naval operations, a man who had seen combat on 4 different worlds and carried himself with the bearing of someone who had earned every scar. The guards retreated. The door sealed. Rourke's stern expression cracked slightly. "You magnificent bastard," Rourke said quietly. "Half the council thinks you've created a doomsday weapon. The other half thinks you're bluffing and me. I trained you, David. I know you don't bluff. Which means you actually did it." "The Nova Cascade is real," Torres confirmed. "Every calculation verified, every system tested. It will perform exactly as I specified. And you deployed it without authorization from Earth's government. I deployed it with tacit approval from people who understood the mission required deniability. If this fails, Earth can claim I acted alone. If it succeeds, we become a major power overnight." Torres moved from the viewport. "You taught me that sometimes the best strategy is the one that seems insane until it works." Rourke paced the cell, his military mind clearly processing variables. "The Corvath military is repositioning. Not aggressively, but they're consolidating forces. Preparing for something. They're preparing for the aftermath. When their home system goes dark, there will be a power vacuum. If we can't get both sides to negotiate during that window, everything falls apart." Speaking of both sides, Ambassador Threll of the Draven Collective requested a meeting. The council refused, but he sent a message through back channels. Rourke pulled up a holographic display. "The Draven government is debating whether to launch an offensive strike while the Corvath are vulnerable. Threll is trying to prevent it, but there are elements in his government that see this as their only chance for revenge after 5 centuries of bloodshed." Torres felt ice form in his stomach. He had anticipated this possibility, planned for it, but hearing it confirmed made the danger real. "If the Draven attack, everything I've done becomes worthless. The war expands, Earth gets dragged in deeper, and we prove we can't control the forces we've unleashed. Threll knows that. He's using your demonstration as leverage, arguing that if Earth can cripple the Corvath, we can just as easily cripple the Draven for betraying the peace process." Rourke met his gaze. Was he right to make that argument? "Yes, if the Draven attack during the Cascade, I'll order our fleet to intervene. We can't let this turn into a massacre, even though that intervention might start a war between Earth and the Draven Collective. Especially then, we positioned ourselves as peacemakers. That means protecting both sides from their own worst impulses, even at cost to ourselves. Torres pulled up tactical displays showing the positions of all three fleets. The Korvath need to believe we're a credible threat. The Draven need to believe we're credible protectors. And the Council needs to believe we're serious about galactic stability. Those three things only align if we follow through on every promise, no matter how difficult. Rourke was quiet for a long moment. You know, there's a good chance you won't survive this, right? Even if everything works perfectly, even if the war ends, the Council might still decide you're too dangerous to leave free. They could imprison you as an example. I know. And you're fine with that? Torres thought about his answer carefully. When I was 12 years old, my school took a field trip to the Museum of Human Conflict. They had an exhibit about the 100 Years' War between England and France. 5 generations of people who never knew peace, who were born into war, lived through war, died in war. And I remember thinking how insane it was that no one just stopped. No one had the courage to force an end, so the suffering continued. He turned back to the viewport. The Korvath-Draven War is the same thing on a galactic scale. 18 billion dead because no one was willing to take the risk of forcing resolution. If ending that requires me to become a prisoner or a martyr, that's a price I'll pay. You really believe that? I have to. Because if I don't, if I start questioning whether this was worth it, the doubt will show. And the moment doubt shows, Kren and Threll and every other player in this game will sense weakness. Everything collapses. Torres met Rourke's gaze. I committed to this path 3 years ago when I started developing the Nova Cascade. Now I see it through to the end, whatever that end looks like. Before Rourke could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lighting flooded the cell. The guards outside rushed past, weapons drawn. Heading toward some unseen threat, Rourke pulled up tactical displays and his face went pale. God in heaven. The Korvath fleet just made an unexpected jump. 47 warships materializing near the station. They're not firing, but weapons are hot and shields are raised. Torres moved to see the display. There, in a formation that suggested both precision and barely contained fury, hung the Korvath battle fleet. At its center was a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even Earth's newest ships. The personal flagship of War Master Kren himself. He came personally, Torres said, something like satisfaction in his voice. That's good. Good? He could turn this station into debris. If he wanted to attack, he would have. This is theater. He's demonstrating that his fleet is still operational, still capable, still dangerous despite what's about to happen to his home system. Torres smiled slightly. He's also here because he's smart enough to know that I might actually pull this off. He wants to be present when it happens. Wants to be part of the negotiation rather than a bystander. You're reading a lot into a hostile fleet deployment. I've spent 3 years studying Korvath psychology. Kren is a survivor. He's maintained power in a cutthroat political system for 2 decades. Men like that don't stay in power by being predictable. Torres moved to the cell's communication terminal. Can you get me a channel to High Arbiter Velmuth? Probably. Why? Because in approximately 3 minutes, Kren is going to demand an audience with me. I want that audience to happen in the Grand Assembly Hall, in front of every delegate, where whatever happens next is witnessed by the entire galaxy. Rourke stared at him. You planned this. You knew he'd come. I hoped he would. Kren showing up personally means he's taking this seriously? Means he's actually considering the offer instead of dismissing it out of hand. Torres began composing a message. Now we have to make sure the audience happens in a way that serves our purposes. As if responding to a script only Torres could see, both their communication implants chimed simultaneously. Priority message from High Arbiter Velmuth. War Master Kren has demanded immediate audience with Commander Torres. The Council has agreed to reconvene the tribunal in 1 hour. Prepare yourself. Torres sent a quick response confirming his attendance, then turned to Rourke. Contact Captain Morris on the Nightfall. Tell her to bring the ship to high alert but not to take any aggressive actions. We're about to find out if I've started a peace process or ignited a galactic war. What if it's the latter? Then we adapt. We always adapt. Torres straightened his uniform, checking his appearance in the reflective surface of the viewport. How do I look? Like a man who bet his species' future on his ability to outsmart civilizations that were building empires when humanity was still living in caves. Perfect. Torres moved toward the door. Let's go make history. The walk through the station's corridors felt surreal. Everywhere Torres looked, he saw alien beings stopping to stare at the human who had threatened the Korvath Dominion. Some expressions he could read as fearful. Others seemed almost hopeful. A few were clearly calculating how Earth's emergence as a major power would affect their own political positions. They reached the Grand Assembly Hall to find it already packed beyond capacity. Every seat filled, every gallery crowded. Species from across the council jostling for position to witness what might be remembered as either the greatest diplomatic breakthrough in galactic history or the beginning of a catastrophic conflict. Torres entered the judgment circle. Across from him, separated by 50 meters of crystalline floor, stood Warmaster Kren. The Korvath Warmaster was a vision of controlled violence. 3 meters tall, his scaled body covered in ceremonial battle armor that had not been worn in diplomatic settings for generations. His 4 eyes glowed with barely suppressed rage. The crest of bone that crowned his head stood fully extended, a dominance display meant to intimidate every being in the vast chamber. Everything about Kren's posture screamed apex predator. Evaluating whether to strike or circle, Torres stood in his simple gray uniform. Unarmed, unarmored, but somehow projecting a calm that made several observers in the gallery shift uncomfortably. The contrast was stark. The ancient warrior versus the young diplomat. Raw power versus calculated strategy. Old galaxy versus new thinking. High Arbiter Velmuth floated between them, his bioluminescence cycling through patterns that suggested extreme stress. This tribunal reconvenes under emergency protocols. Warmaster Kren, you demanded this audience. Speak. Kren's voice rumbled through the translation systems like distant thunder. I stand before you to witness judgment upon Commander David Torres of Earth. This human has committed an unprovoked act of war against the Korvath Dominion. Council law is clear. He must surrender himself for trial and punishment. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Several delegates nodded. The law was indeed clear, and Torres had technically violated it in spectacular fashion. In 9 hours, Kren continued, my home system will be struck by this weapon your people unleashed. 30 billion Korvath citizens will experience technological disruption. Our defense networks will fail. Our communication systems will collapse. We will be vulnerable to any enemy who wishes to exploit this moment. His 4 eyes fixed on Torres with lethal intensity. You claim this was calibrated to avoid deaths, perhaps, but you have demonstrated the capability to cripple the heart of our civilization with a weapon we cannot defend against. I demand justice. I demand your surrender. Torres let the echoes of Kren's words fade completely before responding. When he spoke, his tone was conversational, almost friendly. No, the single syllable fell into the silence like a hammer on crystal. Kren's scales rippled with what might have been shock or fury or both. You refuse? The Warmaster took a step forward, his massive form radiating menace. You attack my people and then refuse to answer for your actions? I am answering. I'm answering by refusing to accept your framing of events. Torres clasped his hands behind his back, completely at ease. I didn't commit a crime, Warmaster. I declared war. There's a difference. Semantic games will not save you. Not games. Legal precision. Torres turned to address High Arbiter Velmuth directly. I transmitted a formal declaration of war 72 hours ago, conducted according to council protocols. I specified grievances. The destabilization of this entire sector caused by the Korvath-Draven conflict. I stated clear terms for resolution. I provided the required warning period. All documented and verified. Velmuth's appendages twisted with uncertainty. A declaration of war requires just cause under council law, which the first provided. 18 billion dead over 5 centuries. Trade routes disrupted. Populations displaced. Council resources diverted to managing a conflict that should have ended generations ago. Torres's voice hardened. As a council member, Earth has the right to declare that such long-standing destabilization represents a threat to galactic stability. You have no territorial interests at stake. Kren roared. You have no military presence in this sector before now. You cannot simply declare war because you feel like it. I'm not declaring war on a whim. I'm declaring war to end your war. The one you've been prosecuting for 500 years. Torres finally faced the War Master directly. Tell me something, Kren. How many of your people actually want this conflict to continue? The question clearly caught Kren off guard. His eyes narrowed suspiciously. Be honest, Torres pressed. How popular is this war among your general population? How many Korvath parents are tired of sending their children to die? How many citizens are exhausted from rationing and sacrifice? How many privately wonder why their leaders haven't found peace? The will of the Korvath people is not your concern. It became my concern when I positioned myself as the only force capable of ending their suffering. Torres pulled up holographic displays, showing public opinion data, economic analyses, political structures. You're not here because I attacked your home system. You're here because I've exposed a truth you've hidden for decades. This war is perpetuated by those who profit from it. It could have ended generations ago if anyone had been willing to force the issue. The chamber erupted. Korvath delegates rose from their seats, scales flushing with anger. But Torres noticed that some remained seated, their postures thoughtful. He had struck a nerve. The truth resonated even when it hurt. Ambassador Threll of the Draven Collective pushed forward from his position. Commander Torres speaks truth. My people have proposed 17 comprehensive peace treaties over 2 centuries. Every single one rejected by the War Master's government with minimal consideration, because your terms were unacceptable. Kren shot back. You demand territory that belongs to the Dominion by ancient right. We demand the return of worlds you conquered during the war, colonies that were Draven for 1,000 years before your fleet seized them. Enough! Velmeth's command boomed through the chamber. This tribunal will not relitigate the original dispute. We are here to determine if Commander Torres acted within council law. Torres seized the moment. Then let us be absolutely clear about what I actually did. I did not attack civilian populations. I did not destroy infrastructure. I did not cause casualties. What I did was demonstrate the capability to temporarily neutralize military command structures through non-lethal means. He expanded the holographic displays to show detailed technical specifications. In 8 hours and 40 minutes, the Nova cascade wave will reach the Korvath sun. For exactly 6 days, advanced technology near that star will be disrupted. Then the effect dissipates harmlessly. No permanent damage. No deaths? Just a pause that forces everyone to stop and reconsider. You expect us to believe this is humanitarian? Kren's voice dripped contempt. You've shown every rival civilization that we have a vulnerability. No, War Master. I've shown them that Earth has the capability to enforce peace when the Council cannot. Torres's expression became almost sympathetic. I understand your position. You've built your political career on this war. Your supporters, your contractors, your allied noble houses all depend on conflict continuing. Peace threatens your power base. Several Korvath delegates shifted uncomfortably. The accuracy of Torres's statement was cutting. But here's what you haven't considered, Torres continued. I've given you something no council mediator ever could. An external threat that unites your people? You can't make peace with the Draven because it looks like weakness. But you can negotiate with humanity because we've demonstrated superior technology. You can tell your people you're not surrendering. You're making strategic accommodation with a power that proved itself beyond your ability to counter. Understanding began to ripple through the chamber. Torres was not just trying to end the war. He was giving Kren a political exit strategy. I don't need your face-saving gestures, human. Yes, you do. Because in 8 hours, your home system goes dark, and everyone will watch how you respond? Choose continued hostility, and the 12 human dreadnoughts along your border become a permanent presence. Earth becomes an ongoing monitor of your activities, always ready to intervene if we perceive renewed aggression. Torres, let that sink in. Or accept my offer. Immediate peace negotiations with the Draven, mediated by human arbitrators, guaranteed by our enforcement. You tell your people you secured peace with honor, that you recognize the emergence of a new power that made continued conflict strategically untenable. Your political position becomes stronger, not weaker. Kren was silent, his multiple eyes studying Torres with unnerving focus. When he spoke, his voice was lower, thoughtful. And if we agree to negotiations, what happens to you? You've admitted to attacking a council member. You've deployed weapons that violate treaties. Even with pure motives, you've broken fundamental laws. I have. And I'll accept whatever punishment the council deems appropriate after the peace treaty is signed. Torres straightened. That's my offer, War Master. You get peace, political cover, and face-saving resolution. The Draven get their colonies back and an end to centuries of bloodshed. The council gets stability, and I get to watch it all happen before I face consequences. You would sacrifice yourself to end this war? Without hesitation? For the first time, something other than rage crossed Kren's features. He turned to Velmoth. I request a recess to consult with my government. Granted. 2 hours. As Kren departed, Torres noticed a figure in the gallery. The council observer from before, watching with those strange eyes that seemed to see beyond normal reality. The being made a gesture of profound respect, then smiled and nodded before disappearing into the crowd. Rourke appeared at Torres's side. That was an observer. They only reveal themselves at moments of historical significance. I know. They think you're about to change everything. Torres watched the space where the observer had stood. I already have. Now we see if the change takes root or withers. 2 hours until we find out. 8 hours and 37 minutes until the cascade hits. Everything depends on what Kren decides between now and then. The 2-hour recess felt like an eternity compressed into heartbeats. Torres Rem. Aimed in a secure chamber, refusing the stream of diplomats who tried to gain access, he needed silence. Space to think through every possible response Kren might deliver. Admiral Rourke had returned to the Nightfall, coordinating the dreadnought fleet that maintained positions along the contested border, neither advancing nor retreating. A statement of readiness without aggression. Torres watched the countdown on his display. 7 hours until the Nova Cascade reached the Korvath sun. Everything he had worked toward for 3 years came down to this narrow window of time. His communication implant chimed with an unexpected signal. Priority channel, maximum encryption. The identifier made Torres's eyebrows rise. Ambassador Threll. Except, Torres said, the Draven diplomat's holographic projection materialized. Wings. Drooping with exhaustion but eyes burning with desperate intensity. Commander Torres, I must speak quickly. My government has received intelligence from within the Korvath Dominion. There is a faction in Kren's military command that opposes any negotiation. They're planning a coup attempt. Torres felt his pulse accelerate. When? The moment the home system goes dark? They'll claim Kren's willingness to negotiate proves weakness. They'll execute him and seize control. And then launch offensives against both the Draven and Earth to demonstrate strength. Exactly. Threll moved closer to the projection pickup, mandibles clicking urgently. If Kren dies and extremists take power, your entire plan collapses. You won't end the war. You'll escalate it to include Earth as a primary target. Torres paced, thinking rapidly. Does Kren know about this plot? We don't know. Our intelligence came from a Korvath officer who defected 3 days ago. The information appears credible. The conspirators are led by High Commander Drex, one of Kren's own advisors. Can you get this intelligence to Kren? Not directly. If we approach him, it looks like Draven manipulation. He'll never believe us. Threll's wings trembled. But if you present the evidence, if a human with no stake in Korvath politics warns him about internal traitors, he might listen. Torres nodded slowly. Send me everything you have. Every document, every intercept, every source verification. It needs to be absolutely convincing. You're risking everything. If Kren thinks you're trying to manipulate him, we lose any chance at peace. If I stay silent and Kren dies, the war expands to consume Earth. Those odds are worse. Torres met the ambassador's gaze through the hologram. Send the package, I'll handle Kren. The intelligence data flooded his implant. Torres reviewed it quickly, his mind racing through implications. The conspiracy was sophisticated, well-organized, with support from multiple high-ranking officers and at least 3 noble houses. If Kren went down, the coup would be swift and brutal. There's something else, Threll said quietly. My government has authorized me to tell you that if this fails, if war becomes inevitable, the Draven Collective will stand with Earth. We've seen what you're willing to risk for peace. That deserves loyalty. Torres felt unexpected emotion tighten his throat. Thank you, Ambassador. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. The hologram faded. Torres immediately composed a message to War Master Kren, flagged with highest security protocols. He attached the intelligence package and added a single line. Check your inner circle before they check you. We need to talk privately. He transmitted the message. 3 minutes later, a response arrived. Docking Bay 7, alone, 10 minutes. Torres informed his guards and made his way through the station. Docking Bay 7 housed Kren's personal shuttle. When Torres entered, he found the War Master waiting alone, ceremonial armor removed, looking somehow more dangerous in simple combat fatigues. Kren's eyes tracked Torres as he approached. You have an interesting definition of alone. I'm detecting 12 targeting solutions from your dreadnoughts focused on this exact location. Standard precaution. They'll stand down if necessary. Will they? Do you really want to test it right now? Torres stopped at a respectful distance. Did you review the intelligence? I did. Kren's voice was carefully neutral. Either you've uncovered a genuine conspiracy or you're executing elaborate deception to make me paranoid. There's a simple way to test which. Call High Commander Drex right now. Tell him you're accepting the human peace proposal. Watch his reaction. Kren was silent, then activated his communicator. A holographic projection materialized, showing a scarred Korvath officer with veteran bearing. War Master, Drex said respectfully. The tribunal reconvenes in 40 minutes. What are your orders? I've been considering the humans' proposal. There may be strategic merit to negotiated settlement. I'm inclined to accept preliminary discussions. Drex's eyes widened fractionally. A tiny tell, but both Kren and Torres caught it. War Master, surely you're not seriously considering surrender to human threats? The Dominion's honor demands we reject such weakness and show strength through continued resistance to both the Draven threat and this new Earth aggression. I'm considering what serves the Dominion's future best, Kren interrupted. Prepare our delegation for peace negotiations. Sir, I must protest in the strongest terms. If you show weakness now, our enemies will exploit it, and our allies will question your leadership and ability to protect Korvath interests in this dangerous galaxy. Are you questioning my judgment? The pause crackled with tension. Drex's scales shifted through several colors. Never, War Master. I simply urge caution and further private discussion before making public commitments that cannot be reversed. We'll discuss it. Kren terminated the connection and turned to Torres. That was a man planning treason. That was a man who just realized his timeline is compromised. He'll move the coup attempt forward, probably within hours. Torres pulled up tactical displays. You could have let this happen. Let Drex remove you, then negotiated with whoever took power. Drex won't negotiate. He's a true believer in Korvath supremacy. If he takes control, he launches suicide offensives against everyone he perceives as threats, which now includes Earth. Kren studied Torres. You're a strange creature. You attack my civilization, threaten my people, now warn me about assassins. I don't know whether to kill you or promote you. Let's focus on surviving the next few hours first. They spent the next 30 minutes planning. Torres outlined how to neutralize the conspirators without triggering the coup prematurely, separate them, reassign the most dangerous to positions where they couldn't coordinate, pull loyal troops close. Most importantly, ensure Kren was somewhere safe when the cascade hit. When we return to the tribunal, Torres said, I'm going to offer concessions that sound like capitulation. Restrictions on human technology, council oversight of our weapons programs. It will look like Earth is being forced into weakness. Is it an act? Partly. We can't have the entire council terrified of humanity, but it's also a signal to your opposition. If I'm willing to constrain Earth's power, it makes you look strong for forcing those concessions. You become the War Master, who brought dangerous humans to heel while simultaneously securing peace with the Draven. Kren was quiet. You're not just ending a war. You're reorganizing the power structure of this entire sector. I'm creating conditions where peace profits everyone more than war does. And what does Earth gain? Torres moved to the viewport. We've seen where endless war leads. Earth's history is soaked in blood from conflicts that ground on for generations. We don't want that for the galaxy. If establishing ourselves as the civilization willing to force peace gives Earth influence when important decisions are made, that's acceptable. Ambitious, you have no idea. They returned to the Grand Assembly Hall together. The sight of them arriving side by side sent shockwaves through the delegates. Torres resumed his position in the judgment circle while Kren took his place across from him, but the dynamic had shifted. They weren't adversaries anymore. High Arbiter Velmuth's bioluminescence flickered with confusion and hope. Are you prepared to present your positions? Kren drew himself up. The Korvath Dominion will enter preliminary peace negotiations with the Draven Collective, mediated by human representatives, guaranteed by Earth's Defense Initiative. The chamber erupted. Torres watched Drex in the gallery go rigid with barely controlled fury. The countdown continued. 6 hours and 18 minutes until the cascade hit. Everything depended on what happened in the time remaining. The Grand Assembly Hall transformed into controlled chaos. Delegates from across the galaxy pushed forward, demanding explanations, offering support or protest in equal measure. At the center stood Torres, watching the countdown with the calm of someone who had bet everything on a single hand. 6 hours until the Nova cascade reached the Korvath sun. High Arbiter Velmuth struggled to restore order, his bioluminescence flashing with frustration. This tribunal demands proper procedures. War Master Kren, you cannot announce peace negotiations without council approval, verified agreements established, protocols for mediation and enforcement by recognized neutral parties under established frameworks. I can and I have, Kren's voice cut through the noise. The Korvath Dominion exercises its sovereign right to pursue diplomatic resolution. Or does the council deny member states that fundamental right? Velmuth's appendages twisted. He couldn't deny that right without undermining the entire foundation of council authority and member state sovereignty. Ambassador Threll stepped forward, wings extended in formal witness posture. The Draven Collective accepts the Korvath Dominion's offer. We agree to human mediation and enforcement of any resulting treaty under terms to be negotiated in good faith. A voice rang out from the gallery. I object. High Commander Drex pushed through the Korvath delegation, scales flushed with anger. He pointed at Kren. The War Master speaks without authority. He has not consulted the Council of Commanders or received approval from the Noble Assembly or gained support from the Dominion's military leadership that actually fights this war. Torres felt the moment crystallize. The coup attempt beginning in public, forced into the open earlier than planned because events moved too quickly. Drex had committed to open rebellion. Kren turned to face his subordinate with lethal calm. Are you challenging my authority, High Commander? I'm stating facts. You cannot commit the Dominion to negotiated surrender without consensus from those who have bled and sacrificed for centuries to defend our honor and territorial integrity against Draven aggression. Surrender? Kren's voice dropped dangerously. I'm negotiating from strength. The human demonstrated a weapon we cannot defend against. Rather than leave our home system vulnerable while prosecuting a centuries-old conflict, I'm securing our strategic position by accepting peace with the Draven and establishing relations with Earth's military power. He moved forward, and despite being in a diplomatic chamber, everyone saw the predator stalking prey. Unless you're suggesting we should fight a two-front war against opponents we cannot easily defeat while our home system remains vulnerable? Is that your strategic advice? Drex's scales rippled. I'm suggesting that negotiating under threat is cowardice. The Dominion should respond to human aggression with force, not capitulation that will encourage future threats from other ambitious powers. Then you're suggesting suicidal stupidity dressed as honor. Kren's voice went cold. I have support for my position. Do you? If so, present it. Convince this assembly that continued war serves the Dominion better than peace that preserves our strength and dignity. Drex hesitated. That hesitation revealed everything. The High Commander had expected chaos, confusion, the cascade disruption as cover. Instead, he was arguing his position in full public view, and the logic wasn't on his side. Several Korvath officers in the gallery stood, hands moving toward weapons. Torres tensed, calculating distances, then a booming voice from the entrance. Enough. Everyone turned. A massive Korvath in full military regalia strode into the chamber. Grand Admiral Vex, commander of the Home Fleet, one of the most respected military minds in the Dominion, Vex moved with unhurried confidence. He stopped before Drex, studied him, then addressed the assembly. I command the fleets defending our home system. In 5 hours and 43 minutes, that system will be struck by a weapon I cannot counter. My ships remain operational, my crews ready, but our sensor networks, targeting systems, coordinated defense grid will be disrupted for 6 days. He paused. Commander Torres could have made this weapon lethal. He could have triggered a solar flare strong enough to sterilize our worlds. Instead, he calibrated for disruption without casualties. That suggests someone more interested in leverage than genocide. Vex turned to Kren. War Master, I support your decision to negotiate. It is strategically sound and morally defensible. Any officer suggesting otherwise is either a fool or a traitor. The word hung like an executioner's blade. Drex's scales went pale. Grand Admiral, Drex began. I was merely expressing legitimate concerns about strategic vulnerability and the precedent of negotiating under duress from hostile powers. You were preparing a coup. 15 minutes ago, I arrested 47 officers loyal to you on charges of conspiracy against lawful command authority. Your plan is finished, Drex. Surrender peacefully or be removed in restraints. Silence. Absolute silence. Drex looked around for support. Officers who had stood earlier now sat or looked away. The moment passed. The coup died, Drex's shoulders sagged. I surrender to Council authority for proper judgment under established legal frameworks. Security forces moved forward. As Drex passed Torres, he stopped. You knew? Drex said quietly. You knew before walking into this chamber. That's why you pushed everything forward, compressed the timeline. You didn't give me time to properly prepare and coordinate my response. Torres said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Clever human, Drex said with something like respect. Perhaps our civilization does need to learn from yours after all. Then he was led away. Torres exhaled. The countdown read 5 hours and 28 minutes. Velmuth descended from his platform, approaching Torres and Kren directly. This has been the most irregular proceeding in Council history. You violated protocols, threatened civilizations, exposed conspiracies, somehow turned it all into the foundation for peace. His bioluminescence suggested alien equivalent of a headache. I should censure everyone involved. But you won't, Torres said. Because in 5 hours I will have done what 5 centuries of Council mediation could not. Your arrogance is remarkable. My commitment is absolute. There's a difference, High Arbiter. Velmuth was quiet. Commander Torres, the Council requires guarantees. Earth cannot deploy weapons of this magnitude without oversight. We need assurance your species won't become the next threat to stability. Agreed. I propose this. Earth submits the Nova Cascade technology to Council review. We accept limitations on deployment and targeting. We allow inspections of our dreadnought fleet. Torres paused. In exchange, Earth gains a permanent seat on the Council's Security Assembly and recognition as a primary power in this sector. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The Security Assembly had only 7 permanent members, the most powerful civilizations in Council space. Earth would leapfrog hundreds of older, larger civilizations? That is unprecedented, Velmuth said carefully. So is ending a 500-year war in 72 hours. Torres gestured to the delegations. These civilizations fought for generations because no one had courage or capability to force resolution. Earth demonstrated both. If you want to ensure we use that capability responsibly, give us stake in the system. Make us part of the decision-making structure so we have investment in maintaining the stability we helped create. He could see Velmuth calculating. The High Arbiter was ambitious, and credit for resolving the Korvath-Draven conflict would elevate his position tremendously. I will present your proposal to the full council, Velmuth said finally. But understand, this precedent changes everything. Other aggressive young civilizations will see what you accomplished and attempt replication. Good, let them try. Let the galaxy see that bold action can succeed, that peace through strength is possible, that centuries-old conflicts can be resolved if someone takes necessary risks. Torres smiled slightly. The Council has spent too long managing decline. Maybe it's time to encourage innovation instead of merely preserving existing structures that have clearly failed to address fundamental problems. Ambassador Thrall approached, wings trembling. Commander Torres, on behalf of the Draven Collective, thank you. For 500 years, my people dreamed of peace. I never thought I'd live to see this day become reality. The hard part remains ahead. Negotiating actual terms, rebuilding trust, healing wounds. That work takes years. But it will happen. Because you made it possible. Thrall turned to Kren. War Master, I have hated you as long as I can remember. You represent everything my people fought against. But today I'm willing to see you differently. As a potential partner in building lasting peace. Kren inclined his head with grave respect. Ambassador, I ordered attacks that killed millions of your people. I cannot undo that. But I can commit to ensuring no more Draven die in this pointless conflict. If that's enough to build on, I'm willing to try and work toward genuine reconciliation. They clasped appendages in the gesture of formal treaty beginning. The first physical contact between Korvath and Draven leaders in 3 centuries, Torres's implant chimed. Admiral Rourke reported heightened tension along the border, but no hostile movements. Both sides holding position. Acknowledged. Maintain current alert, but don't escalate. Let's see this through to completion. The countdown reached 4 hours. Throughout the chamber, displays showed live feeds from the Korvath home system. Billions watched their sun, knowing that in moments their world would change forever. Torres stood between Kren and Thrall. 3 beings who had become unlikely partners in rewriting their sector's future. Commander Torres, Kren said quietly. What happens if your weapon doesn't perform as predicted? What if casualties occur despite calculations? Then I spend the rest of my life in a council prison, and Earth faces sanctions that could isolate us for generations. Torres met the War Master's gaze. But it will perform as predicted. Because I don't gamble with Lee. V's only with my own future and reputation. You gambled with 30 billion Korvath lives whether you admit it or not. No, I made calculations based on physics we understood completely. Tested exhaustively, deployed with precision. There's difference between gambling and accepting calculated risk based on verified scientific principles. 3 hours and 42 minutes, Velmuth's voice boomed. All observers assume witness position. By council mandate, this moment must be recorded for historical archive and future reference. The mysterious observer materialized near Torres, strange eyes fixed on him with unsettling intensity. The being didn't speak, but Torres felt the weight of recognition. History being made. The galaxy changing. 2 hours. Torres opened a channel to Captain Morris on the Nightfall. All battlegroup ships activate sensor suites at maximum resolution. I want detailed readings on the cascade effect. If anything deviates from predicted parameters, I need immediate notification. Acknowledged, Commander. All ships ready. 1 hour, the hall fell silent. 7,000 beings held collective breath. 30 seconds. Torres watched with perfect calm. He had committed everything to this moment. If he miscalculated, history would remember him as a mass murderer. But if he was right, everything changed at 10 seconds. 5, 0. The dark energy cascade struck the Corvath sun. The star's corona erupted in brilliant flare. Waves of electromagnetic energy and exotic particles washing outward at light speed. Sensor feeds went white with interference. Throughout the Corvath home system, advanced technology began shutting down in carefully cascaded failures. Defense platforms powered down. Communication satellites went dark. Orbital habitats switched to backup power. Ships activated emergency protocols, but life support remained active. Gravity generators continued. Emergency systems hummed to life exactly as designed. No one died. Torres watched data streams confirming every prediction, validating every calculation. The Nova Cascade performed flawlessly. Devastating to military systems, harmless to civilian populations, the Grand Assembly Hall erupted. Some delegates cheered, others protested. Many stared in stunned disbelief. Kren stood frozen, all 4 eyes fixed on feeds showing his home system. You actually did it. You crippled the most powerful military force in this sector without killing a single citizen. I told you I would. I didn't believe you. I thought it impossible, that the weapon would malfunction, that casualties were inevitable. Kren turned to face him. I was wrong. Because I was wrong, because you kept your word precisely. I'm going to spend the next 6 days negotiating the most comprehensive peace treaty in galactic history. Torres felt weight lift from his shoulders. It was done. Against every reasonable expectation, he had ended the war. Admiral Rourke reported the cascade effect was perfect, textbook deployment. Begin transition to peacekeeping posture. Weapons cold, shields minimal, sensors monitoring both sides. We're not conquerors. We're guarantors now. Velmuth approached. Commander Torres, the Council recognizes unprecedented success of your intervention. While your methods remain controversial, results speak with undeniable clarity. I will personally sponsor Earth's petition for permanent membership in the Security Assembly. Thank you, High Arbiter. Don't thank me yet. This precedent terrifies half the Council. You've shown that a young, aggressive civilization can reshape galactic politics through bold action. Many see Earth as threat now, and many see Earth as potential ally who keeps our word and delivers results. We're part of this galaxy's future now. Better to work with us than against us. Velmuth made a sound that might have been alien laughter. Arrogant to the end. Very well. But there remains the question of your punishment. I violated council law. I accept whatever judgment you deem appropriate. Actually, Kren interrupted, I withdraw charges. The declaration of war was formally conducted and resulted in negotiated settlement. Under those circumstances, council law recognizes the action as legitimate diplomatic maneuvering. The weapons development violations, Velmuth began, were conducted before Earth joined the council. You cannot retroactively apply law to actions taken before membership. Threll stepped forward. I concur with War Master Kren. Commander Torres should face no sanctions. Velmuth calculated the political mathematics. Punishing Torres would alienate both sides, undermine the peace process, make Earth a permanent adversary. Letting him go acknowledged council law needed updating. Very well. Commander Torres, you are formally censured for reckless endangerment of galactic stability. Said censure to be noted in records, but carrying no practical punishment. Consider yourself fortunate the outcome justified the risk. I will, High Arbiter. As the tribunal adjourned, the observer approached slowly. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere simultaneously. Commander David Torres of Earth, I have witnessed 3,000 years of galactic history. I have recorded the rise of empires and fall of civilizations. I have seen brilliance and folly in equal measure. The being's strange eyes looked through him. What you accomplished today will echo across centuries. You have proven that courage combined with precision can achieve what politics and patience could not. I just ended one war. There are thousands more across the galaxy. Yes, and now every desperate civilization locked in endless conflict knows resolution is possible. They will seek you out, beg for intervention, demand you work the same miracle for them. The observer smiled. You have become something unique in galactic history. A proven peacemaker who achieves peace through credible threat of force. Do you understand the weight of that role? I'm beginning to. Good, because Earth's true test is still ahead. Ending this war was remarkable. Maintaining peace, navigating political fallout, managing expectations of 1,000 civilizations who now see you as either savior or threat. That will define whether humanity becomes lasting power or a cautionary tale. The observer turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I believe you're capable of the challenge. Your species has a gift for ambitious gambles. I look forward to recording what you do next. Then the being faded from sight. Torres found Admiral Rourke in the corridor. We're getting requests from 47 different civilizations. Everyone wants to know if we can solve their conflicts too. Tell them we're not for hire. This was a one-time intervention in a specific situation that threatened galactic stability. They won't accept that answer. Then they'll learn. Disappointment. Torres moved to a viewport, showing the dreadnoughts. We accomplished what we set out to do. We've established Earth as a serious power. But we can't become the galaxy's mercenary peacekeepers. That leads to exhaustion and overextension. So what do we become? Torres was quiet, watching stars. We become the civilization other powers must consider. We make alliances, build influence, pursue interests. But we always remember the lesson. Sometimes the boldest move is also the right move, if executed with precision and absolute commitment to following through on every promise. And if we're wrong next time, then we pay the price. But at least we'll have acted according to our principles and demonstrated that Earth stands by its commitments. Torres turned from the viewport. Come on, we have a peace treaty to help negotiate. I don't trust Kren and Threll not to start arguing without supervision. His implant chimed with a priority message from Earth's Secretary-General. The entire planet watched what you accomplished. You've made humanity a galactic power. Come home soon. You've earned rest. And probably medals. Several medals. Maybe a statue. Torres smiled and composed a reply. The work is just beginning, but I'll take those medals. Earth has arrived on the galactic stage. Let's make sure we stay here and build something lasting. He returned to the hall where Kren and Threll were already debating territorial boundaries. Torres waded into the discussion, bringing uniquely human perspective to centuries-old disputes. Finding compromise where logic said none existed, the war was over. Peace was beginning, and Commander David Torres, the human who declared war and ended a 500-year conflict alone, was right where he needed to be. Making the impossible happen through audacity and unshakable conviction, the galaxy would never be the same. Neither would humanity. Outside, the 12 Nightfall-class dreadnoughts maintained their vigil. Silent guardians of peace purchased through calculated risk and absolute commitment. Their weapons were cold, shields minimal, but every civilization watching understood the message. Earth keeps its word. Earth delivers results. Earth is not to be trifled with. The countdown had ended. The cascade had struck. The war was over, and the real work had just begun. Retriclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.